The Galactic Council chamber hummed with its usual ethereal glow as James Parker straightened his standard-issue diplomatic uniform for the 7th time that morning. The massive crystalline dome above hosted representatives from over 300 species, each attending this quarter's administrative session. As Earth's newest junior diplomat, James had expected to spend his first day observing from the auxiliary seating. Instead, he found himself standing at the main podium, trying to decipher a document written in ancient galactic standard. The translation matrix seems to be having difficulty with several terms, his AI assistant whispered through his neural implant. The document appears to be unusually archaic in its formatting. James maintained his diplomatic smile while scanning the floating holographic text. The council chamber's primary translator, a towering methane breather from the Cygnus sector, waited patiently. Around the chamber, representatives from various species watched with what James was beginning to suspect was poorly concealed amusement. "It appears to be a standard resource exchange agreement," James murmured back to his eye. "The terms seem reasonable enough. Acceptance of responsibility in exchange for technological insights from the Crystal Nebula Empire." The document shimmered as he reached the signature line. Several of the gaseous representatives near the chamber's upper tiers began producing what sounded suspiciously like suppressed laughter bubbles. "Perhaps we should consult with Earth Central before proceeding," his AI suggested, but James had spent months studying diplomatic protocols. Simple resource exchanges were well within his authority to approve, and he didn't want his first official act to involve calling home for help. James Parker, representing Earth. "Accept these terms," he declared, pressing his palm to the document. The text sparkled, then transformed into a cascade of crystalline fractals that danced through the air. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of multilingual exclamations. The methane-breathing translator's color shifted from professional blue to alarmed magenta. "Earth accepts guardianship of Princess Starwave of the Crystal Nebula Empire," the translator announced, voice modulator barely containing what sounded like astonishment. "The transfer will commence immediately." James felt his smile freeze. "I'm sorry, guardianship of whom?" A holographic image materialized above the chamber's central platform, displaying a being composed entirely of geometric crystal formations arranged in the rough shape of a humanoid. According to the data stream now flooding his neural implant, Princess Starwave was 17th in line for the Crystal Nebula throne and had gone through 47 previous guardians in the past 3 years. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding," James began, but the chamber's AI was already processing the transfer. Around him, representatives from species he recognized as galactic superpowers were displaying their various forms of amusement. The Unified Plasma Collective's representative was literally glowing with mirth. "Transfer complete," the chamber AI announced. "Earth is now officially responsible for the education, well-being, and actions of Princess Starwave until she reaches crystalline maturity or Earth's sun expires, whichever comes first." James checked his neural implant's data stream again. According to the file, crystalline maturity could take anywhere from 50 to 5,000 years. The previous 47 guardians had all resigned after experiencing what the diplomatic reports delicately termed cultural misalignments. "Congratulations, Representative Parker," the methane-breathing translator said, their color now shifting to what James recognized as the spectrum for diplomatic schadenfreude. "The princess's transport will arrive at Earth's embassy in approximately 3 standard hours. I suggest you begin preparing immediately." As James stood at the podium, watching his carefully planned diplomatic career transforming before his eyes, he couldn't help but notice that the document he'd signed was now displaying a rather important footnote that hadn't been visible before. "Warning: Ancient Crystal Nebula legal documents may contain binding obligations not immediately apparent to modern translation matrices. Consult with legal experts before signing." The council chamber's ambient lighting seemed to sparkle with barely contained laughter as James realized his first day as a diplomat had just become considerably more complicated than he'd anticipated. The Earth Embassy's landing pad wasn't designed to accommodate a fleet of crystal ships. James watched in mounting concern as 7 prismatic vessels descended through the atmosphere, their surfaces refracting sunlight into rainbow cascades across the embassy grounds. The smallest ship was roughly the size of a small cruise liner. The largest could have comfortably housed several shopping malls. Princess Starweave's personal transport is requesting docking clearance, his AI assistant reported. They also request permission to manifest her temporary quarters. James looked at the landing pad's limited space. To find temporary quarters. His answer came in the form of light. Beams shot from the largest vessel's crystalline spires, intersecting in a complex geometric pattern. Where the beams met, crystal began to grow, spreading and forming into elegant towers and sweeping archways. Within minutes, a palace of pure crystal had manifested itself next to the embassy's modest administrative building. That's going to play havoc with local air traffic, James muttered as the crystal structure rose another few stories skyward. Please tell me it's finished growing. The princess's minimal accommodation requirements have been met, his AI confirmed, though her full palace would be approximately 4 times this size. The central ship's docking ramp extended, forming a bridge of translucent crystal. 2 rows of beings made entirely of geometric shapes emerged, their crystalline bodies chiming softly as they moved. Between them walked a smaller figure that James recognized from the hologram. Princess Starweave's form shifted constantly, internal facets rearranging themselves like a living kaleidoscope. She moved with careful precision, each step measured as if she was calculating the exact force needed to counteract Earth's gravity. "Welcome to Earth, Your Highness," James said, bowing at the precise angle his AI suggested. "I hope your journey was comfortable." The princess's response came through his neural implant's translator. "This atmosphere contains an unusually high percentage of water vapor. My environmental systems are having difficulty compensating." James glanced at the clear blue sky. "There's a 20% chance of rain later today. Should we move inside?" The crystalline entourage produced a sound like wind chimes in distress. The princess's form flickered rapidly through several configurations before settling back into its humanoid shape. "Rain," she repeated. "The phenomenon of liquid water falling from above. We were not informed this facility experienced such extreme weather conditions." "It's perfectly safe," James assured her, wondering how someone could reach what his files suggested was the equivalent of human adolescence without experiencing rain. "The embassy building is weatherproof. I have studied theoretical meteorology," Starweave announced. "My previous guardians provided extensive data on planetary weather patterns. However, direct exposure to precipitation was deemed unnecessarily hazardous. The sky chose that moment to demonstrate Earth's meteorological hospitality. A distant rumble of thunder preceded the first drops of rain. The crystalline entourage immediately began generating force fields, but Starweave stepped forward, her geometric form tilting upward. The raindrops that touched her crystalline surface created tiny prisms, sending miniature rainbows dancing across the embassy walls. Her internal facets began shifting more rapidly, catching and refracting each drop in new patterns. "This is..." The princess's translation hesitated. "This sensation is not listed in my experiential database." James watched as she extended what approximated arms, her crystalline surface creating increasingly complex light patterns as more raindrops fell. The entourage's distressed chiming rose in volume, but Starweave seemed transfixed by the interaction between water and her natural form. "Your Highness," one of her attendants transmitted, "the exposure to unfiltered dihydrogen monoxide presents unacceptable risks." "The risk calculation is inaccurate," Starweave responded, her form now glowing with refracted sunlight. "This experience is generating new pattern possibilities I had not previously conceived. Observer, please record all light refraction data for future analysis." James watched as the princess of the Crystal Nebula Empire experienced her first rain shower, surrounded by increasingly anxious geometric attendants. He couldn't help but smile as she discovered that spinning in place created spiral patterns of rainbow light. Perhaps, His AI suggested diplomatically, "We should begin discussing the regular schedule after Her Highness has finished conducting her meteorological observations." The thunder rumbled again, and Princess Starweave laughed in chimes. The Parker family botanical garden sprawled across 50 acres of carefully maintained ecosystems. James watched as Princess Starweave hovered at the entrance, her crystalline form reflecting the morning sunlight onto the welcome sign. "Your family maintains this collection of organic matter," she transmitted, her translation carrying undertones of fascination and confusion. "For what purpose?" "Research, preservation, and education," James explained, walking through the gate. "We specialize in endangered species and sustainable growing practices. My mother started it 30 years ago." Starweave followed, maintaining a careful distance from the nearest plants. Her usual entourage had been reduced to 2 observers after James convinced her that 20 crystalline beings floating through the gardens might disturb the local wildlife. "These organisms multiply themselves without technological assistance?" she asked, studying a flowering cherry tree. "How do they maintain proper geometric alignment?" James picked up a fallen cherry blossom. "They don't need to. Natural growth patterns follow their own mathematics. Here, look at this flower." He held out the blossom. Starweave extended a crystalline appendage, generating a small anti-gravity field to lift the flower for closer examination. Her facets shifted rapidly as she analyzed it. "The petal arrangement approximates a Fibonacci sequence," she transmitted, surprise evident in her harmonic undertones. "But the variations are unpredictable." "Fascinating." A hummingbird darted past, catching Starweave's attention. Her form rotated to track its movement, internal lights shifting to match its iridescent feathers. "That organic entity achieves flight without repulsor fields." "How?" "Wings, air pressure, and lots of practice," James said, leading her deeper into the gardens. "We have a research center ahead where you can study the mechanics if you're interested." The princess's next question was interrupted by her observers chiming in alarm. A light breeze had blown some pollen onto her surface, creating tiny spots of organic matter on her pristine crystalline form. "Your Highness, we must sanitize your outer layer immediately," one observer transmitted. "Organic contamination could disrupt your geometric integrity." "Negative," Starweave responded, her attention fixed on how the pollen caught the light. "This interaction requires further study." Observer, record prismatic variations caused by organic particles. James watched as the princess began experimenting, deliberately allowing more pollen to land on her surface. Each speck created unique light patterns as it interacted with her crystalline structure. "These patterns are not listed in any crystal nebula design archives," she transmitted excitedly. "The randomness factor creates unprecedented prismatic effects." When they reached the succulent garden, Starweave spent 20 minutes analyzing how different crystal formations might mimic the water storage capabilities of desert plants. Her observers' distressed chiming reached new frequencies when she began generating small crystal growths in patterns inspired by cactus spines. "Is this level of organic interaction advisable?" James's AI asked privately. The crystal nebula protocol seemed quite strict about maintaining geometric purity. Before James could respond, a sudden flash of light drew their attention. Starweave had created a crystalline flower, its structure an impossible blend of geometric precision and organic flowing lines. As sunlight struck it, the crystal petals emitted a soft chiming sound. "I have never generated an unauthorized pattern before," Starweave transmitted, her form flickering with what James was learning to recognize as excitement. The crystal nebula archives contain no reference for this design. The observers were now floating in tight circles, their chiming reaching frequencies that made nearby birds take flight. "Your Highness, unregistered pattern generation requires immediate review by the Geometric Council." "The Council is 16 light-years away," Starweave responded, already starting work on a second crystal flower. "By the time they review this pattern, I will have generated several more." Observer, please note that I am exercising my right to experimental education under Section 7 of the Guardianship Agreement. James smiled as he watched the princess of the Crystal Nebula Empire create increasingly organic-inspired crystal formations. Each new growth chimed in harmony with the others, creating a garden symphony of light and sound. Perhaps, he suggested, we should visit the orchid house next. I think you'll find their symmetry interesting. Starweave's form brightened noticeably. Behind them, the observers began composing what would surely be a very interesting report to the Crystal Nebula Empire. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. Princess Starwave, 17th heir to the Crystal Nebula Empire, had opened a public garden. The Galactic Council's observation team arrived to find Earth's embassy surrounded by crystalline structures that defied traditional geometric laws. These are not regulation patterns, the lead observer noted, their form shifting through shades of bureaucratic concern. What exactly is the princess cultivating? James stood beside Starweave as she demonstrated her latest creation, crystal roses that responded to moonlight by emanating soft symphonies. Each flower contained a carefully crafted core that combined traditional crystal nebula harmonics with Earth's natural growth patterns. The resonance frequency matches the lunar cycle, Starweave explained, her own form glowing with pride. During full moons, they perform complete sonatas. The biological inspiration comes from Earth's nocturnal blooming flowers. The garden had become a maze of innovations. Crystal trees with leaves that converted sunlight into rainbow patterns lined paths made from luminescent stones. Floating geometric orchids changed color based on air quality, serving as both decoration and environmental monitors. But what purpose does it serve? The observer asked, carefully avoiding contact with a cluster of crystal daisies that were practicing a morning chorus. Starweave adjusted the growth pattern of a nearby crystal vine. These formations combine crystal nebula energy efficiency with Earth's organic adaptation capabilities. The applications extend beyond aesthetics. She guided them to a large greenhouse where crystal formations intertwined with traditional Earth plants. These hybrids produce 40% more oxygen than standard terrestrial species, while requiring 60% less water. The crystal matrices enhance natural photosynthesis. James watched as visiting diplomats from water-scarce worlds began taking extensive notes. Starweave had already received requests for consulting from 17 planetary systems facing environmental challenges. Your Highness, a crystalline attendant chimed anxiously. The Empire's Agricultural Ministry has requested clarification about your unauthorized botanical experiments. Excellent timing. Starweave responded, her form bright with enthusiasm. Please inform them that preliminary tests show crystal hybrid crops could triple yields in low-light environments. I'm preparing a detailed report on potential applications for empire-wide food production. The garden's popularity grew daily. Delegates from across the galaxy walked the crystal paths, studying how each innovation balanced geometric precision with organic adaptability. Even the methane-breathing translator, who had witnessed James's accidental guardianship acceptance, now floated through regularly, their color spectrum indicating impressed surprise. The princess appears to be developing her own gravity field, James's AI noted privately. It's unusual for one so young. Indeed, Starweave no longer needed artificial gravity compensation. Her form moved with increasing confidence through Earth's atmosphere, adapting to conditions that would have sent her previous self into a panic. The Empire's Conservation Council has approved your hybrid development program, James announced, reading from his neural feed. They're requesting installation of crystal hybrid gardens in 3 major cities. Starweave's form brightened momentarily before she returned to adjusting a patch of crystal sunflowers. The Council's efficiency experts will be pleased. These formations reduce energy consumption by 75% compared to traditional crystal architecture. A group of young diplomats in training gathered nearby, watching in awe as the princess demonstrated how to encourage crystal growth along natural geometric patterns. Each student received a small crystal seed, programmed to respond to their own energy signatures. Remember, Starweave instructed, the key is not to force the pattern but to guide it. Life finds its own geometry. James observed as his accidental ward continued revolutionizing both Earth's botanical research and crystal nebula engineering principles. The garden had become more than a project. It was proving that the most beautiful innovations could grow from unexpected combinations. The Galactic Environmental Committee has requested an audience, his AI reported. They're particularly interested in the atmospheric purification properties of the crystal hybrid trees. Starweave's form sparkled with what James now recognized as her equivalent of a smile. Excellent. Perhaps we should show them the new water filtration system next. The coral reefs provided fascinating inspiration for that design. Above them, crystal flowers chimed a gentle melody as the sun set, while Earth's first crystal hybrid garden continued to grow, one innovative pattern at a time. The Crystal Nebula Empire's delegation arrived in a flagship that turned Earth's sky into a kaleidoscope. High crystallographer Prismet, flanked by 7 geometric assessors, descended to the embassy grounds in a shower of precisely angled light beams. "We have received concerning reports," Prismet announced, their crystalline form arranged in officially disapproving angles. "Our observers indicate Princess Starweave has been engaging in unauthorized pattern generation and organic contamination." James stood beside Starweave as she welcomed her empire's representatives. Her form remained steady, exhibiting none of the nervous flickering that had characterized her early days on Earth. "High crystallographer," she chimed formally, "welcome to the Earth Crystal Research Center. Would you prefer a ground tour or an aerial overview of our current projects?" Prismet's form shifted slightly, thrown off by the princess's composed response. "Our priority is assessing the extent of geometric degradation in your patterns. The Council is particularly concerned about reports of biological integration." "Of course," Starweave responded, leading them toward the main research complex. "We just completed a new section on sustainable energy generation. The designs were inspired by Earth's photosynthetic processes." The complex stretched before them, a harmonious blend of crystal spires and organic curves. Solar collection arrays shaped like flowering vines curved gracefully between traditional geometric towers. Each structure hummed with energy that made the geometric assessor's forms vibrate in surprise. "These formations are generating 17 times the energy of standard crystal matrices," one assessor transmitted, their disapproval wavering. "How is this possible?" Starweave guided them through laboratories where crystal seedlings grew alongside Earth plants, each supporting the other's development. "By studying Earth's natural energy systems, we've discovered more efficient patterns than pure geometry allows. Observe." She activated a demonstration chamber where a crystal hybrid tree processed sunlight. The assessors watched as energy flowed through the structure, following patterns that mimicked natural growth while maintaining crystalline efficiency. "These innovations could revolutionize our empire's energy infrastructure," another assessor noted, their form brightening with interest. "The applications for resource-limited colonies alone." "Irrelevant," Prismet interrupted. "These patterns violate 17 different geometric protocols. Princess Starweave, your continued exposure to organic influences clearly requires intervention." James noticed Starweave's form emit a brief flash of amusement. "High crystallographer, perhaps you would be interested in reviewing our latest efficiency reports. The Galactic Science Council has already approved 3 patents based on our research." She projected a holographic display showing energy consumption graphs, resource optimization charts, and implementation projections. Each document bore the official stamps of various galactic institutional approvals. "The Crystal Nebula Empire's reputation for innovation is at stake," Prismet insisted, though their form wavered slightly while processing the data. "These organic-inspired patterns could destabilize centuries of geometric tradition." "Tradition evolves," Starweave responded calmly, leading them to her personal research garden. "Just as crystals grow. Observe this formation." She activated a sequence that demonstrated how crystal hybrid structures could adapt to changing environmental conditions while maintaining structural integrity. The display concluded with projected applications for space station design, planetary terraforming, and sustainable architecture. The Galactic Development Board has already commissioned pilot projects in 7 systems, she added. They're particularly interested in applications for radiation shielding in deep space colonies. James watched as the geometric assessors began generating rapid-fire calculations, their forms brightening with each new possibility they discovered. Even Prismet's rigid geometry showed signs of wavering. The Empire's position on geometric purity, Prismet began, has always been to pursue the most perfect forms. Starwave completed. What could be more perfect than patterns tested by billions of years of planetary evolution? The delegation spent hours examining each innovation, their initial disapproval gradually shifting to reluctant fascination. By sunset, 3 assessors were requesting permission to establish research exchanges with Earth's scientific institutions. Your progress will be monitored closely, Prismet announced finally, though their tone had lost its edge. The Empire expects regular reports on all pattern developments. As the delegation departed, James noticed Starweave's form emanating subtle patterns of satisfaction. They didn't order you to stop, he observed. They couldn't, she chimed softly. My latest energy conversion system is already being installed in the Imperial Palace. Sometimes the most effective revolution is one that makes itself indispensable. Above them, crystal flowers turned to follow the setting sun, their hybrid forms proving that tradition and innovation could grow together, one pattern at a time. The Crystal Nebula Empire's delegation arrived in a flagship that turned Earth's sky into a kaleidoscope. High crystallographer Prismet, flanked by 7 geometric assessors, descended to the embassy grounds in a shower of precisely angled light beams. We have received concerning reports, Prismet announced, their crystalline form arranged in officially disapproving angles. Our observers indicate Princess Starweave has been engaging in unauthorized pattern generation and organic contamination. James stood beside Starweave as she welcomed her Empire's representatives. Her form remained steady, exhibiting none of the nervous flickering that had characterized her early days on Earth. High crystallographer, she chimed formally, welcome to the Earth Crystal Research Center. Would you prefer a ground tour or an aerial overview of our current projects? Prismet's form shifted slightly, thrown off by the princess's composed response. Our priority is assessing the extent of geometric degradation in your patterns. The Council is particularly concerned about reports of biological integration. Of course, Starweave responded, leading them toward the main research complex. We just completed a new section on sustainable energy generation. The designs were inspired by Earth's photosynthetic processes. The complex stretched before them, a harmonious blend of crystal spires and organic curves. Solar collection arrays shaped like flowering vines curved gracefully between traditional geometric towers. Each structure hummed with energy that made the geometric assessor's forms vibrate in surprise. These formations are generating 17 times the energy of standard crystal matrices, one assessor transmitted, their disapproval wavering. How is this possible? Starweave guided them through laboratories where crystal seedlings grew alongside Earth plants, each supporting the other's development. By studying Earth's natural energy systems, we've discovered more efficient patterns than pure geometry allows. Observe. She activated a demonstration chamber where a crystal hybrid tree processed sunlight. The assessors watched as energy flowed through the structure, following patterns that mimicked natural growth while maintaining crystalline efficiency. These innovations could revolutionize our Empire's energy infrastructure, another assessor noted, their form brightening with interest. The applications for resource-limited colonies alone. Irrelevant, Prismet interrupted. These patterns violate 17 different geometric protocols. Princess Starweave, your continued exposure to organic influences clearly requires intervention. James noticed Starweave's form emit a brief flash of amusement. High crystallographer, perhaps you would be interested in reviewing our latest deficiency reports. The Galactic Science Council has already approved 3 patents based on our research. She projected a holographic display showing energy consumption graphs, resource optimization charts, and implementation projections. Each document bore the official stamps of various galactic institutional approvals. The Crystal Nebula Empire's reputation for innovation is at stake, Prismet insisted, though their form wavered slightly while processing the data. These organic-inspired patterns could destabilize centuries of geometric tradition. Tradition evolves, Starweave responded calmly, leading them to her personal research garden. Just as crystals grow. Observe this formation. She activated a sequence that demonstrated how crystal hybrid structures could adapt to changing environmental conditions while maintaining structural integrity. The display concluded with projected applications for space station design, planetary terraforming, and sustainable architecture. The Galactic Development Board has already commissioned pilot projects in 7 systems, she added. They're particularly interested in applications for radiation shielding in deep space colonies. James watched as the geometric assessors began generating rapid-fire calculations, their forms brightening with each new possibility they discovered. Even Prismet's rigid geometry showed signs of wavering. The Empire's position on geometric purity, Prismet began, has always been to pursue the most perfect forms. Starweave completed. What could be more perfect than patterns tested by billions of years of planetary evolution? The delegation spent hours examining each innovation, their initial disapproval gradually shifting to reluctant fascination. By sunset, 3 assessors were requesting permission to establish research exchanges with Earth's scientific institutions. Your progress will be monitored closely, Prismet announced finally, though their tone had lost its edge. The Empire expects regular reports on all pattern developments. As the delegation departed, James noticed Starweave's form emanating subtle patterns of satisfaction. They didn't order you to stop, he observed. They couldn't, she chimed softly. My latest energy conversion system is already being installed in the Imperial Palace. Sometimes the most effective revolution is one that makes itself indispensable. Above them, crystal flowers turned to follow the setting sun, their hybrid forms proving that tradition and innovation could grow together, one pattern at a time. The abandoned space station hung silently against the backdrop of stars, its derelict structures casting long shadows in the sunlight. James stood at the observation deck's window as Princess Starweave's fleet of crystal ships surrounded the station like a constellation of geometric fireflies. Station structural analysis complete, Starweave transmitted, her form glowing with purpose. The framework remains sound despite 50 years of abandonment. It's perfect for our first orbital garden prototype. The station had once served as a major trade hub before newer hyperspace routes made it obsolete. Now its empty corridors would become the testing ground for Starweave's most ambitious project yet. The Environmental Council representatives are ready for your presentation, James informed her, checking his neural feed. They're particularly interested in your radiation absorption calculations. Starweave's form shifted into her formal presentation configuration as delegates from 17 worlds materialized in the observation deck's holographic chamber. Among them floated 3 crystal nebula architects, their geometric patterns arranged in analytical formations. Distinguished council members, Starweave began. Welcome to the future of space-based environmental restoration. The station's holographic blueprint illuminated the chamber. Crystal growth patterns spread across the projection like frozen lightning, showing how traditional structures would transform into living environmental processors. Each crystal hybrid section will serve multiple functions, she explained. The outer layer provides radiation shielding while converting solar energy. Inner layers process atmospheric pollutants and generate breathable air. A methane-breathing delegate shifted color patterns inquisitively. The energy requirements for such a large-scale transformation would be substantial. Traditional methods, yes, Starweave agreed. But observe. She activated a demonstration module outside the window. Delegates watched as crystal structures grew along the station's surface, following organic patterns while maintaining geometric precision. Solar energy flowed through the formation like liquid light. The system generates 170% more energy than it consumes, she reported. Excess power can support additional restoration projects or planetary surface facilities. The Crystal Nebula architects chimed in harmonious surprise. One transmitted, "These patterns incorporate forbidden geometries from the ancient archive." "Not forbidden," Starweave corrected, her form steady. "Forgotten. Our ancestors understood that the most efficient patterns emerge from studying natural systems." She guided the delegates through virtual simulations, showing how the orbital garden would process atmospheric pollution from the planet below. Crystal hybrid structures would filter toxins. 17 worlds have already pledged support, James added, noting the growing excitement among the delegates. The Galactic Environmental Trust has approved full funding for 3 additional stations. The observation deck filled with rapid calculations and eager proposals, until one Crystal Nebula architect chimed a note of warning. These organic-inspired patterns could destabilize traditional crystal engineering throughout the Empire. Starweave's response came with the confidence of one who had grown beyond old limitations. Change comes whether we guide it or not. Better to shape it with wisdom from both past and present. She demonstrated how each innovation built upon traditional crystal nebula mathematics while incorporating Earth's natural adaptation principles. The results were structures more stable and efficient than either approach could achieve alone. The Empire's future lies in learning to grow, not just maintain, she transmitted. These stations can become more than environmental processors. They will be gardens among the stars, proving that life finds ways to thrive even in the void. The Environmental Council's final vote was unanimous. As delegates dispersed to prepare implementation plans, James noticed Starweave's form emitting patterns he'd never seen before. "New crystalline configuration?" he asked. "Hope," she chimed softly. "The pattern emerges when possibilities align with purpose. Earth taught me that growth often requires leaving comfortable formations behind." Through the window, crystal structures continued spreading across the station's surface, each following the sacred geometry of natural growth while honoring the precision of crystal engineering. In their harmonious blend of tradition and innovation, James saw the future taking shape one facet at a time. "The first seedlings arrive tomorrow," Starweave transmitted, her form bright with anticipation. "Soon this station will bloom with new life, proving that even the deepest space can become a garden with proper tending." Above them, stars twinkled through crystal lattices that would soon help heal worlds, their light fracturing into countless possibilities of what could grow from the union of ancient wisdom and new dreams. The Galactic Council chamber looked vastly different from the day James had accidentally inherited guardianship of a crystal nebula princess. Crystal hybrid plants now lined the walls, their soft chimes harmonizing with the chamber's traditional resonance fields. Through the dome above, 3 restored orbital gardens were visible, their structures gleaming like constellation jewels. The Environmental Restoration Committee's final report is ready for presentation, James's AI informed him. Princess Starweave's projects have exceeded all projected success metrics. Starweave stood beside him at the central podium, her form radiating a confidence that made the chamber's crystalline architecture resonate in sympathy. Gone was the cautious young princess who had never experienced rain. In her place stood an innovator who had helped reshape galactic environmental science. "Distinguished council members," she began, her voice carrying the harmonious blend of crystal nebula precision and Earth's natural warmth. "Today marks the completion of our first restoration cycle." The chamber's holographic display activated, showing 17 worlds where crystal hybrid technology had begun healing environmental damage. Barren wastelands bloomed with new life, dead oceans stirred with returning species, and polluted skies cleared under the influence of orbital garden arrays. Implementation of crystal hybrid systems has reduced toxic atmospheric content by 70%, she reported. Planetary surface restoration is proceeding at 17 times the predicted rate. The methane-breathing translator, who had witnessed James's first day as a diplomat, shifted through congratulatory color patterns. The Council recognizes these achievements as unprecedented in galactic history. Delegates from across known space watched as Starweave demonstrated how each success had built upon both Crystal Nebula traditions and Earth's environmental wisdom. The results spoke through thriving worlds rather than just data streams. The Crystal Nebula Empire formally acknowledges these innovations as the natural evolution of our geometric arts, announced High Crystallographer Prismet, their form arranged in patterns of official approval. Princess Starweave has grown beyond our expectations. Growth comes in many patterns, Starweave responded, her form brightening. Earth taught me that the strongest structures are those that can adapt while maintaining their core integrity. The chamber hummed with appreciation as she presented plans for the next phase, a galactic network of environmental restoration centers, each combining Crystal Nebula technology with local planetary wisdom. The first 17 facilities would begin training students from all known species. The Council approves establishment of the Interstellar Environmental Research Academy, the head counselor declared. Earth's embassy will serve as the primary training facility, with Princess Starweave as Chief Innovation Director. James watched as his former ward accepted the appointment with a grace that made the chamber's crystal architecture sing. He remembered her first encounter with Earth's reign, how wonder had overcome centuries of rigid protocol. Additionally, Starweave added, the Crystal Nebula Empire and Earth have signed an unprecedented knowledge-sharing agreement. The first joint research projects begin next month. The chamber erupted in harmonious approval. Species that had once laughed at the idea of human guardianship now sought Earth's environmental expertise. Crystal Nebula nobles who had feared geometric contamination now proudly displayed organic-inspired patterns. Guardian Parker, Starweave transmitted privately, using the title formally for the first time. Your accidental inheritance has grown into something greater than either of our worlds imagined. James smiled. You did all the growing. I just provided suitable conditions. Like any good gardener, she chimed, her form emanating patterns of fond amusement. Earth taught me that the best growth comes from nurturing potential rather than forcing patterns. As the council session concluded, delegates gathered to discuss implementation details for their own worlds. Through the dome above, stars twinkled between orbital gardens that were already inspiring a new generation of environmental innovators. The next class of crystal hybrid specialists begins training tomorrow, James noted. Students from 37 species, including 7 from the Crystal Nebula Empire. Starweave's form sparkled with satisfaction. Then we should prepare the garden for rain. There's nothing quite like watching new students experience their first Earth storm. Together they looked out at the galaxy that had learned to laugh with them, rather than at them, where ancient wisdom and new growth had formed something as beautiful as it was unexpected. Above them, crystal flowers chimed in harmony with the universe's oldest song, the melody of life finding new ways to thrive. The Galactic Council's original laughter had grown into something far more precious, hope, blooming like crystal flowers under Earth's reign.